Cars are super expensive to buy, to rent, to lease, and to operate. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that you can run your car once you've got it for a bit cheaper. Let's get right into it. Hey guys, it's Jonny. I passed my driving test in 2014 and drove a few times for a few months after passing my driving test. And from that moment up until the end of last year, I didn't get back in a car to drive. However, as of last month, October 2023, I now have a car. And as a result, I'm making use of it and I'm driving more frequently now, typically once or twice a week. And now having a car, it's opened my eyes to how expensive having a car can be to run, to operate, to put fuel in it, to maintain, etc., etc. And I'm sure that a lot of people watching as well are suffering the same fate for those of you that have cars. However, fear not, my frugal mindset has of course kicked in now that I'm a bit more comfortable behind the wheel and I've seen different situations whilst driving. So in this video, despite being new to the world of cars and everything that comes with having one, I'm going to share with you my frugal tips that I've learned from driving, from filling up with fuel, from parking, and from cleaning and maintaining your car. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's start with maintenance, something that I haven't dealt with too much yet, being relatively new to having a car. But of course, it's something very important and it's something that you should take seriously when having a car, whether it's a brand new car or whether it's a slightly older car or whether it's a very, very old car. Making sure that you maintain and look after your car is super important. So first thing to do, sounds a bit stupid and it's a bit like, why? Waste of time. Is actually read the owner's manual for the car. You'll be surprised how much you learn about the car, how many features you'll realize that are actually available in your car when you actually have a read through. And by reading some of these things, it can give you ideas on how to save money. It can help you understand how to use the car properly, how to avoid making potential mistakes that can damage the car and as a result cost you money. So knowing your car, knowing what it can do, knowing what you should do with your car is obviously super important. As I say, making sure that your car is generally well looked after, doing its service on time, taking it to a mechanic if something seems off and taking it there on time before a problem becomes more serious. That can save you money as well. And of course, taking it to a trusted mechanic. As I've said in past videos, when it comes to other subjects around like personal finance and, getting access to important services, if you can get a personal recommendation from someone for somebody's services, then generally it's a good sign that this person can be trusted because they'll have done a good job for someone else. And lastly, in terms of maintenance, specifically tire pressure, make sure that your tires are correctly inflated and that they are at the correct pressure. Doing so will make sure that you can drive safely, that your tires don't wear down so quickly, that they stay in a good state overall. And also it saves on fuel economy, which is something that I will talk about a bit later in the video as well. All right, next let's talk about keeping your car clean, which is also important. And it's also very nice, to see a clean car sat in the street and, take it through the car wash or whatever, comes out sparkling clean, beautiful. So obviously you have the car wash, but you don't necessarily have to take it through the machine car wash. The cheapest way to wash your car is by hand, doing it manually at home. Now, obviously that's not an option for everyone due to practical reasons. If you have a garage or a driveway, then it's something you can probably do. But if you live in a densely populated area where you're parked out in the street, then of course it might not be an option for you. So what you can look for, instead of necessarily going through the car wash, you can look for the manual hand wash service that you might find at a petrol station or as part of the car wash section as well. That will of course cost you a lot less money than taking your car through the machine wash. You don't have to wash your car super frequently as well. On the internet, generally I see recommendations of about once every 2 weeks. But if after 2 weeks, your car is not that dirty, then you can probably wait out a little bit more. And of course, that will save you costs in washing the car as well. But of course, don't let your car get to the point where it's dirty, that it's super unsightly, or for example, you can't see out the windows because, they've accumulated so much dirt. All right, now let's talk about fuel. Now, if you live in the UK or if you live in Western Europe, of course, over the past few years and historically, fuel has typically cost a lot of money and is a big expense for drivers when operating a car. So if you want to save money on running a car, then fuel is of course an important place to look on how you can save money. And I'm going to start with a bit of a strange recommendation, which is don't use your car if you don't have to use it. If you're going to the supermarket and you only need a few things, don't go with the car. Like, find a shorter way to go, whether you can walk there, whether you can, take public transport. Or even if you got like an e-scooter like mine, scoot along to the supermarket and take your bags and just get the stuff like that. Is with the cost of fuel being so high, if there is a cheaper way to do it, then why not look for it? Particularly in a lot of European cities, public transport infrastructure is generally good. And in a lot of cases, there are generally public transport options available for you. But of course, don't make your life harder. If you can't carry everything, then of course, take the car. Okay, now that the strange one's out the way, let's go to actually talking about fuel. So monitor the price of fuel, look for days and when the price of fuel is pretty good and you can fill up that day. Generally, looking on the internet, it seems to say that, Monday is a cheap day to get fuel. Sundays can also be a cheap day. And that generally holiday periods and when everybody is, on the road and busy, it is a period when, petrol prices or diesel prices will increase. So keep an eye on prices. Have a think about when is a good time for you to fill up. However, what has the cheapest price on the board might not actually be the cheapest one for you, because a lot of these companies also offer loyalty programs for regular customers. And so with everyone watching this video across lots of different countries, with lots of different, petroleum companies available, it would be impossible to do an analysis of which one is the best and which one works best for everybody. But, to give you an example, they might offer you cash back on fuel. They might offer you a discounted rate on fuel if you're a loyalty member. They might offer you perks and benefits like discounts in other places and other shops. You might even get discounts if you're using a particular credit card, or if you're using a particular bank, they might have an offer at a particular fuel reseller as well. So look into that and think about that when you're thinking about where is the best place for you to fill up as well. Now, linked to fuel, let's talk about using your fuel when driving. Of course, it's important to drive safely and you should drive in a safe manner. But generally speaking, if you're looking for a way to reduce fuel consumption while driving, then of course acceleration and high revs in the car is what's gonna eat up your fuel the most. So it could be, for example, not accelerating so quickly, managing your gear changes so that you're going to a higher gear sooner, so that you don't, use up too many revs in first gear, for example, or in second gear as you're building up speed in the car. Not braking at the last minute, so quick stop starts, that can also use up a lot of fuel as well. And if you have a car that has cruise control as well, then that can also help reduce your fuel consumption, because it's regulating very efficiently how much fuel is being used to keep the car at a steady speed. And of course, whilst you're in cruise control, you're not accelerating or decelerating. Now, before you even get in the car, your route selection can also impact how much fuel economy you have and how much that's going to cost you in terms of fuel efficiency. To give you an example, I have two ways to get into Madrid, which both of them take about the same amount of time. However, one is about 5 or 6 kilometers more than the other one. So the short route, though it is a bit more stop-start, in terms of kilometers, it is much less. Whereas the longer route, basically it's like going out of town, away from Madrid, joining one of the motorways that goes into Madrid, and then going on the motorway for a long time. So it compensates in terms of time, but because it's a slightly longer route, it does use a bit more fuel. If you have multiple route options to get to a particular place, then think about what's more fuel efficient. Most likely it will be that the shorter journey in terms of kilometers will be the most fuel efficient as well. And if you're using an app like Google Maps or Waze, which are two that I've used on the road, in addition to telling you what is the best route for you, you can also add in something to avoid toll roads. So if you have to go through a toll, then you can ask the app to reroute it so that you don't have to go there. And again, of course, that's less money that you have to pay on your journey. And finally, let's talk about how to save money on parking. Particularly if you live in a big city in Europe and you're living near the center of the city, this can be a real pain. To take the example of Madrid, you basically have blue parking zones, which is paid parking for anybody, but you have green parking zones, which is resident parking. Based on your address registration at the city hall, you can pay for a residence parking license. And my friend told me it was only about 30 euros per year that you can pay. That can be a very cost-effective solution, although finding a space might not always be easy. If you really want to find a space with no hassle and you want a guaranteed parking space, it might also be worth looking into hiring a parking space long term. A lot of new apartments that are being built also have parking garages, built into them as well. So for a lot of people, this might already come as part of the building or as part of the apartment that you're buying or renting as well. Although it might cost more than parking in the street, at least you're not having to look around for parking every time, wasting fuel trying to circle around different streets and find a parking space. You know where your parking is and you know that it's going to be there guaranteed. And probably as a result, you also have a lower risk that someone will accidentally dent your car because they backed into you, or they park badly. And also from a security perspective, if your car is within an enclosed garage space that is access to residents only, then of course there's a much lower probability that your vehicle will get broken into. If you're planning a trip and you're traveling somewhere, don't leave parking to chance and trying to find something at the last minute. Have a look beforehand what the parking is like in the area. Are there public parking spaces available? Is it paid? Are there parking garages available where you can leave the car? Again, this will save you both time and money in terms of fuel, driving around trying to find a parking space. If you can find something and have it planned before, of course, it's a much better option. And if you are looking at public parking garages as well, at least in Spain, there are different apps available where if they belong to a particular franchise or group, then you can reserve the parking in advance and you'll pay a lower fee than if you just went to the parking garage without a reservation. So sometimes reserving parking in advance when you know you're going somewhere, it can save you money. So those are my frugal tips, guys. I'm sure there's loads more that you all have, and I'd love to hear them in the comments. So do leave a comment and share with the community your best tips that you've learned from having a car and how to save money. So next time, I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.